Hello, hi, welcome once again to M5's English language learning program, Let's Speak English. I'm Gav Duncan and I'm here on your TV screen to help you learn English. Now, are you sitting comfortably? Yes? Good. And are you ready for today's lesson? Yes? Good. Okay. Well, let's learn English together. We're here in the studio, ready for another lesson in English fun. Are you all ready? Are you sure? Good, because we're all ready. The camera is rolling, the tape recorder is going round, and there's a new tape in the machine. No, there isn't a new tape in the machine. In fact, there isn't even a tape recorder. It's all digital these days. The only analog things in the studio are me and the crew. Okay, moving along. What do you remember about our last lesson together? That's right, Tony the Tiger, OXO cubes, and that bloke with the moustache. Okay, well, just to remind you, last lesson we heard a telephone call between Loretta Sweat and Sharon, Mr. Williams' secretary. They arranged an appointment for Loretta to meet Mr. Williams next week. Loretta will go to the hotel next week to discuss her new job with Mr. Williams. Okay, now, what else did we look at? Who remembers? That's right, at the end of our last lesson, we started to learn another way of comparing things. And this time we didn't use a comparative adjective. Now, we all remember the rules about comparative adjectives, don't we? Of course we do. If we want to make the comparative form of a short adjective, an adjective with only one syllable, then we add er to the end of the adjective. Tall becomes taller. Short becomes shorter. Now, if the adjective ends in vowel plus consonant, like big, then we double the last letter before we add er. Big becomes bigger. Hot becomes hotter. If the adjective ends in a y, then we replace the y with ier. Happy becomes happier. Early becomes earlier. Now, if the adjective is a long adjective, if it has 2 or 3 or 4 syllables, then we make the comparative form in a different way, don't we? Do you remember how we make the comparative form for longer adjectives? Holy kawanga doogle flonga perick! Well done, you all remember. You are remarkable, you gods of English. I bet Darth Vader is jealous of you. In fact, I'm sure We know that the Jackson 5 aren't as good as you, and Darth Vader is jealous of you. That's not bad for 19 weeks, is it? Okay, now, where were we? Ah, yes. We're talking about making comparisons. Now, we all know the rules for comparative adjectives, but we also know that there are a few irregular ones. Yes, I know there are a couple of irregular words in the English language. It's true. Okay, the problem with irregular words is that they don't follow the pattern. But this also means that the answer is also simple. We have to learn them. We have no choice. So we know, or we remember, that good becomes better and bad becomes worse. Okay, now back to what we learned last lesson. We already know that we can use comparatives to make 2 sentences. I am 46, Muddy is 42, Muddy is younger. But we also learned that if we use than, we can join the 2 sentences and make 1 sentence. I am older than Muddy. We also learned that we can modify the comparison if we use a bit and much. I am 46, you are 45, so I am a bit older than you, and you are a bit younger than me. I am 46, and my nephew Jack is 18. I am much older than Jack. He is much younger than me. Great! Now, we also learned another way to make a comparison. And with this new way, we don't even need to use the comparative form. The new way is not as. With this form, we use the adjective, not the comparative form. I am 46, you are 45, you're not as old as me. I'm not as young as you. So, when we use this form, we are still comparing two things, but now we can do it without the comparative form. Fab! All right, so we have to be careful to make sure that if we use the not as form, we have to use the adjective. Now, when we use the not as form, we're stressing the difference between things. But we can change the phrase a little bit and use it to stress the similarity between things. If we want to talk about how things are the same, not different, we change it to the same as. For example, I arrived at Liszt Ferenc International Airport at 3:37 p.m. Paul McCartney also arrived at Liszt Ferenc International Airport at 3:37 p.m. This means that we arrived at the same time. And I can say this in another way. Same time as Paul McCartney. We can say that the weather today is the same as yesterday. And we can say something like, I bought the same newspaper as you did. Okay, let's practice a few. Have a look at the following pictures and then make sentences about them. Compare them. Let's do the first one together. Look at these three boxes. Okay, so we can say that the orange box is bigger than the green box and also bigger than the blue box. The blue box is smaller than the green box, and the blue box is also smaller than the orange box. The green box is a bit bigger than the blue box. The blue box is a bit smaller than the green box. The orange box is much bigger than the blue box. The blue box is not as big as the green box, and the blue box is not as big as the orange box. So you see, we can compare things in a lot of different ways. Okay, now have a look at the next set of three. Okay, so what can we say about these arrows? Well, the brown arrow is longer than the other two arrows. The green arrow is a little bit shorter than the brown arrow. The purple arrow is much shorter than the green arrow and the brown arrow. The brown arrow is a bit longer than the green arrow. The green arrow isn't as long as the brown arrow. The purple arrow isn't as long as the green arrow. Good. Now, are you ready for the next step? The next logical step? Of course you are. After all, you are gods of English, aren't you? So, onwards to glory, all of you gods on the sofa. Now, the next logical step is for us to look at the superlative. The what, Gav? The superlative. The who, Gav? No, the superlative. Let me explain. The superlative is the maximum form of an adjective. It's the highest form, so it's the next logical step. If we take an adjective, big, for example, then we know the comparative form, bigger. Now, we know that bigger is bigger than big. But what's the maximum? What comes after bigger? Well, that's the superlative. That's the next logical step. Look at these 3 giraffes. Now, ignore the gazelle on the left of the picture. The gazelle is not important. Okay, now when we look at the 3 giraffes, we can use our knowledge of English to compare them. We can say that the giraffe in the middle of the photo is bigger than the giraffe on the right of the photo and smaller than the giraffe on the left of the photo. We can also say that the giraffe on the right of the photo is not as tall as the other 2 giraffes. We can say that the giraffe on the left of the photo is taller or bigger than the other 2 giraffes. Great! Now, if we look at the giraffe on the left, we can also say that the giraffe on the left is the biggest. We can also say that the giraffe on the right is the smallest or shortest giraffe in the picture. So, big, tall, small and old are adjectives. Bigger, taller, smaller and older are the comparative forms of those adjectives. The biggest, the tallest, the smallest and the oldest are the superlative forms of those adjectives. All right now, we know that we make the comparative form of most adjectives by adding er to the end of the adjective. Changes to the oldest, cheap changes to the cheapest, and soft changes to the softest. Okay, good. But what do you think we do if the adjective ends in E, like the adjective nice? Well, if the adjective ends in E, then we add st to the end and put the in front of it. So nice becomes the nicest, and strange becomes the strangest. Great! Now, what do you think happens if the adjective ends in vowel plus consonant? That's right-a-doodle-doo. Just as we do with the comparative form, if the adjective ends in vowel plus consonant, the last letter doubles before we change the end. So big becomes the biggest, and hot becomes the hottest. Simple. Okay. Now what if the adjective ends in Y? Well, what did we do with the comparative form when the adjective ended in Y? Yes, right again. We dropped the Y and added ER, didn't we? And now, with the superlative, we drop the Y and add IEST, and then put the in front. Simple, pimple, wimple, and... No, I can't think of another word which rhymes with simple. Now, next lesson, we'll continue looking at the superlative form of adjectives. Well, that's all the time we have for today's lesson. It's the end of the lesson. Well, I had fun today. I hope you had fun too. I'm Gav Duncan. This is M5's English program, Let's Speak English. Don't forget to check out all the videos at www.m5tv.hu. I'll see you later. Bye!